listening to NTParanormal After Dark. Nothing normal about it.
Hey, what is up, everybody? So we are back for episode 19, and today we're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect, multiple universes. We're going to play some games. Got all kinds of crazy shit planned today. So for this super fun episode, I brought people back in, and so we got a full studio today. I got Allie Bolton and Sarah Hatfield with me. Say hi.
Hi. Sup?
Hi. How are y'all?
Okay.
Everybody have a good week?
Yeah, it's cool, man.
I didn't get to blow anything up last night, so no.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we didn't either. Like,
I heard everybody in the neighborhood just blowing stuff up last night, and it kept me up till about 1 a.m. And about 3 a.m, I got a text on my phone from the neighborhood association saying something was on fire, like down by the Walmart or whatever. And so I just went back to sleep. I didn't think about it. And when I went into work today, my boss, who lives a little further down the highway, said when he last night, about that time I got that, he said the fire was actually like a block away. Like he was watching it, and he thought about calling me to be like, hey, is your house on fire? And never did it. So I just slept through the whole thing.
I was reading in the Star Telegram that, the Panther Island, the Fort Worth Fourth on the river was so big that it actually registered on the National Weather Service's radar. Like, yeah, so because there was also a small fire, and then so the smoke from the fireworks and that fire showed up as like a rain cloud. So
That's awesome.
So
I thought it was interesting. I don't remember if anyone was hurt, but yeah,
that's how we celebrate our independence, is we just light stuff on fire.
Oh, it is my favorite
Explode it up
holiday.
into the stratosphere. Just try to, rock both dimensions.
Well, Sarah and I used to, we all used to have this tradition of like going out and buying a whole bunch of fireworks and then hoarding a lot of them.
I still have a trash bag full of them.
Those are so
old. I know. And last time I tried to use one, it exploded in my hand. So they are probably trash. But I can't bring
Is that the
myself to
same
throw
day that
away.
exploded by your face? Yeah, that.
When Jeremy was holding it out the car window, and I got my hearing back like 2 days later. It was okay.
Good times.
Good times.
So it's good to have everybody on. So what we wanted to talk about today, because of the special surprise that Sarah's going to give us at the end of the episode, is, we talk about it a lot, especially like with our Kyle investigation, is the multiple dimension theory, because that's kind of how we stumbled upon Mandela Effect. Like, I'd never heard of it before that.
I looked it up before because, I don't remember. I was watching a video or something, but it was the big one, the Bernstein Bears one.
Right.
It was the first time I ever heard of it.
It'll forever be.
Okay, so we downloaded all our fact sheet, and we had our big super duper professional meeting beforehand. So for all of our viewers, looks like all 6 of them right now, why don't we go ahead and say what the Mandela Effect is?
Okay, so according to this piece of paper, the Mandela Effect.
What's your source?
This very professional piece of paper.
11 by 8 cardstock.
Yes. So the Mandela Effect is the pseudoscientific belief that the pseudoscientific belief that some differences between one's memories and the real world are caused by changes to past events in the timeline. Many Mandela Effect believers believe it is caused by accidental travel between alternate universes, although some others propose that history has been deliberately altered by the effect.
I had the volume off.
Fudge. Okay,
So, we
Yeah,
have
basically-
absolutely no idea what we're doing, by the way.
I turned the volume off. My phone just sucks. Sorry. I
Right.
apologize.
I'm sure that's what it is. So basically what you're telling me, Allie, is that the Mandela Effect is we accidentally slip between multiple dimensions, and things are like slightly different in the other dimension, and people have noticed these changes, correct?
yes.
Or not correct?
See.
Senor?
See.
Okay.
Like,
So why is it called the Mandela Effect again? It obviously something with Nelson Mandela, but what's the particular anomaly?
It was after some people erroneously believed that Nelson Mandela died in prison when, I mean, we all know that he didn't. He survived prison. He ran for president. He became, but after, like so many people were like, no, he's dead, but he wasn't.
Yeah, so it's what lends some credibility to the idea, other than just people being idiots and wrong, is that I think like long ago, I might be misquoting, but I think when I looked up the stats, it was like 60% of the population believed Nelson Mandela was dead. Which he is now, right?
Yeah,
right?
He actually is now. But sorry, did I yell at you?
Yes, unless that's the Mandela effect, and he's not actually dead.
God, y'all. Della.
But actually, in the 80s, while Nelson Mandela was in prison,
and rat was still a thing.
Dude, rat is still a thing.
Since we live in 2018, I'm just gonna Google it real quick.
Okay.
Steve Bilko died in prison at the hands of police officers. And
so that's where the mistake came from.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the mistake came from. But Nelson Mandela did not die in prison. He was released, I think, in the early 90s, or he ran for president in the early 90s. I think
he passed away in 2013. It looks like.
Okay, so this isn't Mandela Effect. This is just we're uneducated about Nelson Mandela here, but there's other examples.
Yeah,
like your favorite one,
the Bernstein Bears. So when I was a kid, my grandma read me the Bernstein Bears, Stein.
Right,
but
like German.
Yeah,
Bernstein.
But it's not spelled that way. It's spelled Bernstein, and I have racked myself trying to find these books because I'm gonna prove it. Damn it.
And everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's gonna find those books and prove it, and then they go dig them out of their attic, and it's Berenstain.
It's like living in my own personal hell, because I swear up and down my entire childhood it was Berenstain Bears.
You know how I know it was Berenstain Bears? Because when I was little, I couldn't say Berenstain Bears, and I kept saying Berenstain Bears, and when we were looking at the book, there's like, no, the I is before the E. It's Steen or Stein, Bernstein, and I was like, oh.
But they've actually called the lady who was behind writing these books, she named it after her last name. Her last name's Bernstein.
Yeah, she's a filthy liar. She's from the wrong dimension, is what the problem is.
That's what it has to be, because I swear. Or another.
And this is the exact mode of thinking that gets us to the idea. I mean, it's super scientific that there has to be two universes, because this children's book we all read, I like how that's what gets us there, is Nelson Mandela died, and these fucking bears it spelled their name differently 10 years ago.
What's another popular one? Oh, Sex in the City, or Sex and the City.
But I never actually watched that show, so I wouldn't know.
Don't reveal the answer if you think you know it.
Oh, is that?
It could be. It could be.
I don't even know, honestly.
So the other one we can talk about is the one that got me like hardcore was the Shazam.
Yes.
Oh, Luke,
thing.
I Am Your Father is another one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that may be right or it may be wrong. I don't know. We'll let the chips fall. Okay,
that's not fair. If you're playing a game with me and Allie and it's a Star Wars question, that's not fair.
All right,
it's kind of an unfair advantage.
All right, so we know what's going on here. We know what's up. So let's do a little trivia before we get too far into this. Right? Hold on a second. I gotta pull something up. What color are C-3PO's legs?
They're gold. Oh, buzz. They're not gold.
It's another Star Wars question.
How do you know it's a Star Wars question?
Because you made me watch them.
Then you have.
She's seen them like 30 times. I've seen them once.
Okay.
Apparently, it's not helpful.
What is the name of the character that's responsible for keeping you from starting forest fires?
Buzz.
Yeah.
Smokey the Bear.
False. only you can prevent forest fires.
It's Smokey the Bear.
But it is
Yeah, but who tells you that?
Smokey,
Smokey the Bear.
Apparently, it's not Smokey the Bear. It's Smokey Bear.
Well, they're wrong.
They said C-3PO's legs are silver.
3PO's legs are silver.
Okay. And Earth is located. Okay, yeah, your comment still ain't popping off.
I always remember him being gold, and then
Yeah, I
silver.
remember it being gold. Maybe it was just three.
I'm glad y'all are playing along at home. Jeez.
We are all kinds of wrong.
Where's the human heart located in the human body?
Upper left side. Buzz, upper left side of the chest.
Our hearts were more to the left, 2/3 of it to the left. Our left lung was smaller than the right to compensate for the room the heart took up. Apparently now the heart is actually located almost directly in the center of your chest.
It's right off center. It's always been right off center.
Apparently it's located in the center of your chest.
It's not dead center, but part of it is in the center. Like, it's right here.
Emilio says it's in the center of the chest.
Well,
He disagrees with
I've
you.
seen the inside of someone's chest.
yes.
That,
Where is the human stomach located?
it's right here. It's right.
This is a very
Sorry,
audio format.
left upper quadrant of your abdomen.
Oh, okay, interesting. What do you think, Sam?
I agree with her.
Yeah, that's where it's actually located. So that is factually
Yeah.
accurate. It used to be in the center of your stomach, apparently. I don't know how to word this one, so I'm just going to say it. The human skeleton now has 4 floating ribs in the back.
You've always had floating ribs.
I don't know. I don't know enough about anatomy for
The
that
bottom 4
one.
of your ribs have always been floaters.
Is the rib cage open or free floating?
What do you mean open or free floating?
Oh wait. I'm sorry. Sorry, I worded it wrong, so I screwed that up totally. Are your ribs free floating, and do you have an open rib cage, or are they closed and fused together?
Don't they fuse at the sternum?
They're fused at the sternum, but you have floating ribs. But they're still attached at the spine.
That's correct. Yeah, they're closed on the front. I guess a lot of people think that they're just open on the end.
Hey.
Website with Wix.
You need to fix our music.
First
At least
up,
put it
go to
look
Wix.
for continual loop. Yeah.
Well, I'll just do that. Yeah, the comment counter's going up, but it's not letting me view them.
Emilio said closed. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that was the last thing. So that popped up.
Steven Seagal's apparently spelled different now.
I don't think I've ever seen a Steven Seagal movie.
What is the brand name of the most popular adult diaper underwear sort of thing?
Buzz. Depends.
I was going to say the same.
Apparently it's just Depend without the S. I always put the S on there.
Scroll down.
Does Curious George have a tail?
I don't know.
Buzz, no.
She says no. The answer is no, he does not have a tail, but apparently he used to.
Oh, that's a.
Poor George.
I was about to say, put into context, Curious George is kind of a sad story. Like the entire series.
Elaborate?
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, he is in a zoo. He's supposed to have a tail, doesn't have a tail. And he has to, constantly rely on the man in the yellow hat. He's
Who
in
probably cut off
he's-
his tail.
Yeah, he's, living in captivity instead of in the jungle with his family.
What color are Adolf Hitler's eyes?
They were
Brown?
buzz. They were blue, weren't they? No, they were brown.
Buzz Brown. I would have said Brown.
She actually buzzed first, cheater.
I didn't buzz. I forgot to say Buzz.
Yeah, he's got brown eyes. But a lot of people, I guess, thought
It's
they were
fine.
blue.
Well, people think that because he was
He was
ooh,
so
Aryan
adamant,
race,
yeah,
blonde
Aryan
and
race.
blue-eyed.
What does DEA stand for?
Drug Enforcement Administration.
You would know that. What is Madonna's real name?
Madonna has a real name.
Yeah.
Madonna. Buzz Madonna.
You're actually right.
Really?
That was
so
her real name?
Madonna was her stage name, not her real name, and it was considered an affront for the church. Her birth name was Maria Louise Veronica Sassone. Now Madonna is her real birth name, and her full name is Madonna Louise Veronica Zone. I don't know if I'm saying the last name right, but
Probably not.
but I never thought. I for some reason I thought that wasn't Madonna's.
I know
First
Lady
name.
Gaga's name is like Stephanie or Stefan. I don't know.
What country was Genghis Khan from?
I can only sing the song in my head.
I can't say it. I can't do it without like the South Park.
Emilio says he's seen books with George hanging by his tail, for sure. He doesn't have a tail. He's a primate, not a. He's not a monkey. He's an ape.
Knocking down my shitty wall.
Did y'all figure out the country?
Mongolians?
Turns
Sorry,
out-
Mongolians.
Turns out Mongolia is not a country.
It's a part of China. I thought it was. I thought Mongol. Well,
There never was a country called Mongolia.
Oh no, Mongolians are race. They're a type of people. They're a tribe. Right.
Okay, we only have a few left on here.
I don't know. I feel dumb right now.
What's at the North Pole?
Santa, duh.
Geographically. Is there a landmass at the North Pole, and if so, what is it called?
Santa's workshop.
No.
Apparently, people think there is a landmass called Antarctica at the North Pole.
What?
But it's vanished according to the
There's 7
timeline,
continents.
and it was only an ancient continent.
I was about to say, I didn't think there was any land masses up there. I thought it was just all ice.
Yeah, Antarctica. Do you think there's one because it's Antarctica? There must be an Arctica, like Arctica and Antarctica.
I don't know exactly where it comes out from.
you
Okay,
think they
the
fight
last
each
one on
other?
here. What's the capital of Israel?
Didn't they just say like this year, like that they officially made it Jerusalem?
No, they moved our embassy to Jerusalem.
Oh, I'm dumb.
He's trying to make it the capital. I'm not sure how that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It says it used to be Tel Aviv, but it's like in this timeline has changed to Jerusalem.
Okay.
I don't know enough about that to have an opinion either way. Okay, so our game show here. This is the proof that everybody has of multiple universes, and we're traveling back and forth between them. So seems pretty silly to me for the most part, but I mean there are like weird sort of discrepancies that happen from time to time where it kind of makes it feel like really like these are really silly, but there's things that happen that do make it like really plausible. Like, and it sounds dumb, but like the Berenstain Bears thing like really gets you because like I can remember the wording that way. But I think it has a lot. I think that part of it has so much to do with the fact that your memory is so faulty. Like every time you remember something, we
And
talk about this all the time.
It probably was our parents reading it to us, and I don't wonder if maybe our parents pronounced it wrong.
See, like my parents never read it to me. I always read it in school,
See, my grandma read it to me,
and then I watched the cartoon.
and she can't pronounce fajita, so.
And I remember reading Berenstain Bears, and I remember Babar the elephant.
Is it not Babar?
It's Babar. It better can be Babar. If it's like Baybar or something, I'm
You're
gonna
missing
be mad.
comments again.
No, I'm not. I clicked the thing.
Oh, my phone has some, yours don't.
Screw you, Facebook.
Yeah.
Julie said I thought it was Jerusalem. That was the comment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jerusalem's the correct one. So, when you kind of go off of that body of work, like the things that people were posting on the internet about the multiple realities or whatever and traveling back and forth between it doesn't sound real plausible. Like it sounds real silly, and it's easy to kind of turn your nose up at it.
Well, I mean, because the internet would never lie.
Well, what's really funny is like if you don't look for Mandela Effect facts, like you go do research on actual
Right.
multiverses, multiple universes, how it could work, scientific models of that and stuff. There's actually been a lot. It's so weird because that has generated a lot of actual scientific looking into the whole thing on whether or not it's actually possible. And the funny thing is science says not only is it possible, it's actually pretty probable. It's most likely that the multiverse theory is actually correct.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's skeptics in the field, and they have legitimate reason, because it's all theoretical science. But like a majority actually says that it's a thing. So the first person to actually propose multiple universes would actually really, really surprise you. It's not like somebody more modern like Stephen Hawking or whatever. It actually comes from Isaac Newton.
Oh.
And it was suggested in 1704 in the book Optics. He suggested the idea of a multiverse. Since space is divisible by infinitum, matter is not necessarily in all places. It's also allowed that God is able to create particles of matter of several sizes, figures, and in several proportions to space, and perhaps different densities and forces, therefore, and thereby to vary laws of nature and make worlds of several sorts in several parts of the universe. At least I see nothing of contradiction with all this. In 1952, your favorite scientist, Erwin Schrödinger, gave a lecture in which he warned the audience about what he was going to say might seem crazy, and that's when he furthered the idea of the multiple universe thing, and he posed the idea that things could exist in multiple states simultaneously that only change when you actually observe them. And that actually kind of goes to the Mandela Effect. The thing is Bernstein Bears might always stay Bernstein Bears unless somebody notices that it's Bernstein.
I find it insanely interesting just that things change just because you're looking at them.
Right. You were talking about that the other day. What's that called? I can't remember what that theory is.
I don't remember, but I was getting into the whole where does the observer end and the observed begin.
Right. So like if you're looking at something under a microscope, are you interfering with it by observing it?
Is the microscope part of the observed or part of the observer?
Like, is that something akin to like the butterfly effect?
Actually, I think it's part of Occam's razor. Actually,
The shortest,
but I mean,
the most plausible answer being the most likely.
Yeah.
So, but that goes to what Schrodinger's saying is like your cells are going to operate normally until you observe them, and then suddenly as you start observing things happening in the environment, things change in the environment. And by observing something, you actually split the universe because there's an unobserved version of it also happening.
Is that where people got the insane idea that blood in your body is blue until it's exposed to air?
Yes.
Probably, yeah. That makes sense.
Huh?
I was just wondering, like, because I don't know if you could hear me because I realized I was kind of far away from the mic.
Oh, yeah, I can totally hear you. You're loud as hell.
Yeah.
Yes, totally, the cat thing.
Yeah,
Schrodinger's cat.
I always used to believe that too, that the blood in the, and I heard that's why your veins are blue,
Yeah.
But that's because it's not oxygenated, right? When it goes back, it's going back.
It has nothing to do with the oxygenation of your blood.
Will illuminate me.
It has to do with the color of the light going through your skin and hitting your veins.
Maybe it's because it's depressed.
But all your blood is blue. It doesn't have to hit oxygen to be blue. All your blood is red. It doesn't have to hit oxygen to turn red. Your blood is never blue.
Lies.
Quantum theory, yes, it is part of quantum theory. The observable universe. It's also part, and I believe it's also part of Occam's razor that anything observable actually changes under those circumstances. But
I thought Occam's razor was the most logical point being the most likely.
Yeah, I thought that's what we talked about.
The shortest point from point A to B is a straight line. Occam's razor. If you hear hoofbeats, think horses.
Not zebras.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you're also correct.
Okay. I
think it's part of that whole theorem. The other thing I think is totally hilarious, actually, is where did I find it? Oh, the Mandela Effect also falls under the same category as the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Oh, so stupid people think they're smarter than they are?
Right. They don't realize how dumb they are. And so
they don't have the intelligence to realize that they're doing something wrong.
Right. They're so stupid they think they're the smartest person in the room, a.k.a. me.
We see this on the internet so often.
Many times.
I have a new game. No. Let's name people.
I love games.
I don't want to play this game.
But what I find really cool about the multiple universe theory is that there's actually a whole lot of math that's involved. Like Stephen Hawking, ever since Schrodinger kind of furthered it, you have Einstein put forth, a lot of theories about, gravity, relativity, the way it worked, and the way gravity in our time space could actually manipulate gravity in another time space. So you have multiple layers of these things like stacked on each other.
So theoretically, like maybe in a whole nother universe, we could fly.
I guess there's an
If our bones were hollow and
so
there was
here's
less gravity, I guess.
here's a really cool thing that is hard for people to wrap their head around. So infinity, you think of like infinity, like limitless, right? It turns out in physics,
There's actually an end, isn't
yeah,
there?
infinity is actually a finite number. Now it's a gigantic, unending number, but infinity has a beginning and end. But there's an infinite number of infinities. I know.
I can't math, so
Yeah,
I'm getting a headache. Like,
So the way it works is our universe is infinite, but it's basically spherical is a bad word. It's homogeneous, right? But since there's an infinite number of infinities, there's an infinite number of homogeneous universes, and so they can exist in layers upon each other and interact with each other. So when they touch, they actually manipulate each other, and that's what actually creates the fabric of your reality. So by all this math, you're constantly interacting with an infinite number of universes and timelines, constantly and infinitely. You okay, Sarah?
Oh, my eye just hurts. I'm good.
I think I broke her.
well, like I remember the first time I ever heard anything about the possibility of different dimensions, like outside of like cartoons or anything like that, particularly X-Men, was when we were in school. My chem and physics teacher liked to take a vacation once a year, and that entire week we would have to take notes on Stephen Hawking's movie. It was like an old movie. I can't remember what it was called. I wish Zach was on the line so like he could tell me what it was, because I know he knows. Yeah, like, and that was the first time ever, because it was going about like string theory and everything like that, and they were talking about.
So as far as our known universe, it's actually mapped out, through photons, because the way we actually see anything is through waves and forms of energy. So of course everything is spherical going out. We would be in the center of it's not that we're in the center of the universe, because the universe is homogeneous.
That's just the starting place.
But that would be you're always in the center of your own universe, because that's your perspective.
Homogeneous means like all the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
I was just making sure that's what you meant, like, because I keep thinking like, you're sure you don't mean like hetero, like whatever.
No, homogeneous. So
okay.
So
That
okay.
was my for my own clarification.
I'm gonna switch to my camera for a minute so I can do hand stuff, right? So you have the Big Bang, and everybody, and it starts at like a single point of energy, and it explodes out from there, right?
Right.
So you would think that would actually be the center of the universe, but there is no center, because it's infinite, it's homogeneous, it's always going. So as the universe is constantly expanding, which is the universe constantly expands, if you think about it is like points on a balloon. As that balloon blows up, each piece gets bigger. So there's an infinite number of centers, right? So inside that point, before the Big Bang, there was an infinite number of centers that also Big Banged infinitely.
So it wasn't just one Big Bang, but several, like an infinite amount of
simultaneously, all the particles in all the universe ever exploded at the same time.
Can I ask a question pertaining to the Big Bang?
Yes.
So, like, I'd always
Which I have a cool certificate saying I studied the Big Bang in gravitational physics. So I am exactly the person you want to ask to get it wrong.
So, well, Well, no. Do you ever remember hearing that thing that like the static on your TV is actually like leftover atoms from the Big Bang and this, that, and the other? Do you remember hearing that?
That is partially correct. That is.
Yeah. So like, please tell me that's not a Mandela Effect thing, because that I thought was always the coolest thing ever.
No, that's not a Mandela Effect thing. That is just just kind of very, very watered down explanation of it. So like when we send, the cool thing about like especially like in our paranormal investigations, so we're gonna go on a little tangent here, so follow me. But when we're talking about like some of the stone tape theory stuff, how sometimes maybe some of the things we're catching are echoes. There's, if aside from stone tape version of that, it could actually be that so signals that we send out into space, radio waves, televised broadcasts, those just travel an infinite number of distance out, right?
Right.
But the laws of physics say that everything will travel unless it's acted upon by an opposite force, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so those things, they're going to travel out, and then they're going to hit other solid objects that are in space and bounce back, right? So radio waves that infinitely go out into space, television broadcasts that go out into space,
Light.
just my voice carrying into just this right now, not through the equipment, but just my voice carrying. Sound travels infinitely until it
hits something.
It hits something. It runs out of steam because of friction in the air, things like that. But it's still going, so it could bounce back. So in theory, years from now, the signal of Hitler's transmission to the troops could, in theory, come back and be captured by our equipment, like that original broadcast, like years later.
That would be equally terrifying and awesome.
That's one of the big ideas about like why EVPs, even in a completely controlled environment, if you're not doing what we do, where we use a Faraday cage to block outside signals, that you could be receiving transmissions that nobody's broadcasting. So it's,
or haven't broadcasted in
right.
years.
So it's actually kind of a form of time travel. And so the idea is that our visual devices could catch these waves or whatever, and you could get spectral images in your video because of a old television broadcast that's interfering with your equipment.
See, and I'm quicker to believe that, I think, than I am that it would be honestly anything paranormal.
Right.
Just because there's so much, like, the same reason why, like, I always try to keep an open mind. There's just so much in our universe that we just don't know. We can't sit here and pretend like, nope, there's no such thing as this or this or this, when, it's like you said, there's infinite amount of infinite possibilities. Like, it's just, you don't know that for sure, and we never will. So you can't sit there and say, like, it is this for sure, it is this for sure, or it's not paranormal, or it's not, we're waves transmitting back to us from, like, in the past.
Right. So in like, back to your question about like the static, that it's basically like the radiation from those transmissions or whatever that's bouncing around, and it's kind of that white noise energy, and that's basically how we get to that first model I was showing is the radiation barrier. The farthest point we can see out is like stars that have already died, billion. The things we see at the edge of the universe is what things looked like at the beginning of the Big Bang. Right, but it's slowed down and it's still it's real hard to wrap your head around. So that's so hard to wrap your head around that people tend to think of it in terms of, okay, that's like the only universe. But the thing is like I was saying, so everybody thinks of like there was one electron that exploded into a million negative and positive. But the thing is within everything was still the same size. It's relativity. Everything was still the same size in that singular point before it exploded as when it exploded. It's homogeneous. Well, so there's an infinite number of molecules, electrons, neutrons, and things like that. That still existed inside there. So there's also an infinite number of Big Bangs that happened.
Right. I do have another question.
Uh-huh.
So do you think somewhere that there is a universe where the Big Bang hasn't even happened yet? Or are you still pretty stone set on the fact that they all exploded at once?
Well, it would be the opposite. It would be, okay, so when the Big Bang happened, your positive and negative neutrons separated, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have a negative version of that as well. So you will have an infinite number of universes that are going backwards.
So they're going back to. So do you think there's like a constant cycle of exploding and imploding? Because that's pretty cool.
Well, yes. Now we're getting to the part where it's smarter than me, because I'm not. I am not a certified physicist. I am just like really, yes, I'm a paranerd.
Well, I like the idea, because that would be kind of cool. Like, where our universe is still expanding, there's another universe shrinking. There's another universe that has already shrunk and is about to explode all over again.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. But the universe that's shrinking, like our puny little human brains think of it like, oh, stuff's getting smaller, right? But that's not it, because since it's all relative, we don't know. Like, do you feel the universe expanding now? Or does it just always seem like it's the same size?
I feel my gut expanding.
Hey, they say y'all are ignoring them.
Oh.
But then again, comments aren't showing up.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Comments aren't showing up, so we're not ignoring you, I promise.
I'm checking occasionally on my phone so we can...
Yeah, we'll try to go back and answer some... Are there any good questions? Mostly I see people griping about math.
So
as you should.
So
math sucks.
So would SETI just want to just set up an old TV with a dish and monitor the static until it catches a signal?
SETI can do that, actually.
That's what Emilio...
Yeah, so the SETI, that's the radio telescope is what that is.
It's a search for extra... Yeah, that's the...
Right.
There's a bunch of them, though.
Yeah,
right?
it's network radio telescopes all over the world working together. It is a network, is a team. But technically it could do that. Like, it could catch the first radio broadcasts that were ever there. But it's trying to look past that. But it actually receives bounce back signals from that all the time. But a lot of those bounce back signals, even if they're bouncing back from the asteroid belt, haven't traveled all the way back here yet. You also got to remember there's no friction in space either. So anything that can actually get past our own radiation belt, sound waves, energy waves, anything like that, are just going to travel infinitely. But so the other thing I wanted to bring up was, okay, so I showed the normal model of the universe. So if you're looking at a one of the multi-universe, if you're looking at a one of the multi-universe models, you'll see that they basically overlap on each other and they can actually touch each other. And those anomalies could technically be detected by energy fluctuations, which would show up in the form of heat or whatever. So the idea that you could travel between universes is scientifically valid, even if this big pile of stuff here is silly. So I'm having a hard time like reconciling it. I guess is what I'm getting at. Like I have all this data that's really good, that really supports multiple universe theories and things like that. But most of the data where people have like experienced it's just totally silly. And then we have our own. We have our own stories about that. Kyle being the big one. Where spatial reasoning, like we go there one time and there's a forest in the back, and then
we go back another time, there's no forest. It's
right.
just like a slight row of trees.
And you walk 3 feet away from someone and it feels like you've you feels like you've walked 3 feet away from someone, but you're
Right.
40 yards away from them.
We were talking about it at length at Arlington. I know you couldn't make it, Allie, but we were actually there were a few people that were interested in that, and we were actually talking about it turned out we thought we didn't for a long time, and then over the course of all the investigations, going back and reviewing it, we actually have a lot of evidence that points that there was some kind of dimensional slip.
So we're not just like insane, right?
No. So all our equipment when we go in is synced
Right.
digitally.
Yeah.
So there can be variance between equipment, but you're talking like,
A minute.
yeah, like a few seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
But there are very clearly parts in those investigations where there are big discrepancies between what happens on different pieces of equipment. So, for example, on my body cam, the camera I'm carrying, I'll ask Sarah a question and she'll answer it, and we'll have like a normal conversation. On the same time stamp that is stamped on my camera, on hers in the same spot, she's easily standing like an extra 5 feet away from me and talking in a different tone of voice, but it's the same conversation. It's the perspectives are completely
So,
different.
Do you think possibly like in this realm where different dimensions do exist, that there are areas that are the veil is like thinner than in
If
like,
I had to
different-
pick a place, I would say Kyle.
Yeah. I mean, so because at first like I thought like Kyle was crazy because they did all the fracking, but it turns out they hadn't been fracking in 5 years. But I mean, I guess
we did check everything. Like,
yeah,
I
we
even
checked
went on and
everything we
looked at-
possibly could.
And somebody we were
survey
talking
maps
to
and-
brought up a really good point that we should go out with analog watches
Yeah.
synced as well as the digital, because our digital
Wasn't
stuff
that,
could be wrong.
Fiance? Did you say that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually think that's a good idea, and we should definitely do it.
Right. And then we also did some spatial stuff out there too. You know, we took like some tape measures, we stepped it off, and we got different results for things that should physically just be the same.
It's so House of Leaves, that whole
Yeah.
area. I'm just waiting for the cats to start disappearing.
It is. I recently reread House of Leaves, and it made me think about Kyle the whole time.
I think like I do honestly believe in extra dimensions. I mean, mostly because like scientific, it's the most scientific thing I could really think of that could equate into paranormal or, you know, anything like that. So there would have to be areas where the wall is thinnest.
Yeah, and that's always what kind of like strikes me about like a lot of these paranormal things, because we do capture like paranormal things. Maybe we don't have the proof to like really substantiate, but we are like finding things that we're interacting with. And I'm more prone to believe that and it sounds so dumb saying it out loud, but interdimensional beings, and not necessarily that they travel between dimensions, but that you're actually catching fragments of alternate timelines,
Like stuff we're not
or maybe
really-
signals that bounce back,
Like
we were
stuff we're
talking
not
about.
really supposed to see.
Well, that's the whole thing I said about how animals can see different color spectrums than we can. They can hear different, sounds than we can. Why couldn't there be things from other dimensions that are just so far out of our grasp because we can't see and hear in the same way that's paranormal? Right now it's paranormal, but once we have the equipment to...
It's just science.
Yeah, once we get the
Yeah.
equipment to sort it, it'll just be science.
What is that? How does that quote go? That might be another Mandela Effect thing. Science is...
Any technology a certain amount greater than your own is tantamount to magic. I
Yeah.
don't know the actual quote, but that's close enough.
Yeah, I mean, paraphrasing. So, I mean, but right now, it's just magic.
Yeah.
But later on, one day, it will just be regular old science.
Yeah.
You know? There will be an explanation for it, but...
Emilio says when we do the analog experiment, we need to make sure it's the same brand, same every, and yeah, we
so
always
need
do
to-
that because we're a very controlled group. When we do an experiment, we make sure that there's no variances. So, but like since I mentioned it, but like so the first time we've basically done that experiment, it was all digital, which there, like I said, there is room for error. But every time we've gone out there, I have been very I could maybe the the counter theory would be that maybe the camera was set a couple of seconds off, like they weren't synced properly. But we go to deliberate efforts on every investigation since that first time we went to Kyle. I make sure before we even go out there that everything is synced.
I was about to say, but how would that explain her tone of voice being different in the same video?
Right. I know, but I'm just talking about the timestamps. But there's different little things, like so like that one example in my camera, she's standing like here to here, right, and we're having a conversation. In her footage of that same event, she's actually standing over by the tree and we're having that same conversation, but she's having to like not shout, but she's having to raise her voice to get it to carry because I can't hear her. Another thing that's really crazy about, and this could be more supernatural than the dimensional thing. I guess it could be dimensional, but on her camera, she'll be doing something and you'll hear me in the back say, "Hey Sarah, blah 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 blah." Just ask a normal question. She'll answer it, and then after that, you'll hear me go, "What? Huh?"
And from a different direction.
I wasn't even talking to you. But just listening to her camera, you think I'm just jacking with her. On my camera, you can hear her just all of a sudden start answering a question, and then you can hear me go, "What? Huh?" What's in all the rest of it's the same, except for the part where I talked the first time.
Well, it kind of goes on to that. I mean, and it's not just like audio. Like, you know, like that one day when we were out there and you were, God, you were between the trees. You were not behind your car.
He was over there by the 3 gravestones.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, in the
Skinwalkers.
The one thing we haven't done out there is, in this would go, I meant to do it one time and I totally forgot about it, but we need to write down all the names of every person in the graveyard and then see if it changes.
That's a good idea.
That is a good one.
Later.
Yeah,
we could actually do gravestone rubbings would be even better.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought that would be interesting, is like maybe some disappear
or the
dates change or something like that, because there's a lot of information.
I mean,
those
hell,
headstones.
like, or like we could even like we need to do the rubbings, take a photograph, and then write it down.
Yeah, all 3
in that order. I mean, it's gonna be tedious, but we need to do it, and then go back like a day or 2 later, 3 days, a week later, or something
leaving
like that.
A moon cycle.
Yeah. Are we just now getting like?
And I've been looking.
Yeah, I'm basically looking on my phone too. Facebook is it's been doing good for a while. I haven't had this problem in a while. I don't. Maybe it's the processing power because of all the extra cameras and stuff like that. I don't know, but we're not getting all the comments in real time.
Right.
But so I don't know. I would like to take a poll on one of our pages about who thinks the Mandela Effect is just mismemoried, who thinks it's dimensional stuff, and of course a lot of people probably think it's both.
Yeah, a little bit of hooey mixed in
with some actual.
I don't know. I really like this person that wrote this paper about the Mandela Effect. Their kind of take on it, you know, it's just that it's like anime nerds that live in their mom's basement who just have panic attacks.
Not all
Oh, Julie,
nerds.
I've actually already drawn up a map of Kyle. Interestingly enough, I have a map from when we first started going.
We should go back and redo it. We should
Yeah.
redo the map and then compare the two. Like maybe do it like on tracer paper, so then you
Yeah.
can put it
Okay.
over and see where changes have
No,
been
that's
made.
that's a good idea.
Okay.
And I actually went on Google Earth too and looked at it.
So I'm gonna write that down.
I remember drawing one out for like our third investigation because I wanted to plot out where everybody would go and all. Is that the map you have? That might be it.
It might be.
But all I know is every time we're there, and I think like
I
think I'm standing by the tree, I'm not.
Yeah, the trees are always in like different locations too, and especially the difference between day and night. But I don't know. I don't know if that freaking cemetery / creek just exists in an alternate reality that sometimes we cross over into, or what's going on with it. But
And that's been the only investigation we've ever had that has made me second guess my doubt in the paranormal.
I know, and it was just I don't even have words for it.
It's
like it's just
it's so illogical. It's past the point of being able to explain it almost.
Yeah, and
Because we sound like nut jobs.
We do, and anytime I try to explain it, like I tried to explain it to my partner, or I've tried to explain it to somebody else, I'm like, look, I know this is going to sound crazy. I am mostly not a crazy person, but this is what happens.
Telling y'all that I walked through a forest that didn't exist.
Emilio says we need to count our steps from one
Yeah.
in which we've done that before. The problem with that is when you're paying it, when you're observing something, it changes. And I'm pretty good at it because, you know, in my day job, I used to have to step off like trailers and stuff like that, where I do like a heel toe sort of thing. So I'm real good at not varying my footstep if you have a reference.
You can do it band style, marching. I mean, I was in marching band.
Heel toe.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good reference, but you're going to end up.
We need tape measure.
Yeah. You need something
Or
more accurate.
we could do both.
Yeah.
Step off, measure it. It's one of those places we have to overdo it so many times. Like we have to like triple check everything.
Oh, we've worn that place out to the point that Sarah has a special treat for us.
Oh yeah. What have you got for us today, Sarah?
Okay, so why don't you... I mean, it's me and you got this idea. We were driving around looking for cemeteries one night, and we had been listening to creepypastas, right?
Right, yeah, that's kind of our thing, is we'll just drive around at night looking for...
scary stories.
Listening to scary stories and finding new places to go or whatever. And, you know, of course, I write scary... I've got the one book published, and you know, and I'm working on some other stuff, and then you have a couple of short stories of your own published.
Yeah.
But you're already on Reddit. Like when we first started talking about Kyle and our investigation stuff, you'd actually posted.
I had posted the Kyle story on Reddit. I've since taken it down.
Right, because a lot of that actually ended up in our book in the Kyle chapter,
well, and I took
and
it
we
down,
reworked it.
I took it down too because my memories were off, and watching the videos later, I really wanted to rework the story. But when I was talking about reworking it, we came up with this idea that we would make it to where things actually happen.
Right. So the stories that me and Sarah have been writing, and of course Allie and Kristen are going to end up getting in on it because I think we should do, you know, is like a committee or whatever. But it started me and you.
Kristen just didn't come in till later, so that's why she hasn't been writing in yet.
Right. Yeah. So we were just kind of like snowballing, but we were writing like a fictional version of our real life investigations, and that's how it kind of ties into some of this multiverse Kyle sort of thing, because that's where Sarah thought it was best to kind of start the story. And then you're actually, since you're such a huge fan of the Reddit thing, you're actually writing it as like a first person blog.
A no sleep. Yeah, it's the no sleep Reddit.
So, so Sarah's gonna read live some of what we got. It could change a little bit later after we were. I mean, we've gone through and kind of reworked it. We know how the story is, but we just kind of wanted to share it, see if you guys kind of liked it. You know, before we go too much forward with it. But we're gonna actually do like a pre-recorded with like characters and background music, and we're gonna actually run it as like a separate podcast, like kind of like the old school radio show, but it's going to be an account of like some of our investigations, but it's the more extreme version of it where we actually find stuff and talk about it. It's pretty cool so far because we're like brainstorming wise, we're so far into the plot. Bad
Allie. I'm a bad bear.
She's being bad on the podcast. Get off your phone, Allie.
Look, I'm trying.
She said with her phone in her hand. I was just going to check the comments real quick.
That's what I was doing.
So if you don't want to listen to me read 15 minutes worth of story, I understand. But
you should totally listen to 15 minutes worth of story because it's super good. She did a really good job. And I went in and I helped edit or whatever, but this is 90% Sarah's writing.
And I do have stuff on Amazon, and I'll send it for free if anyone wants to read it. It's just 2 short stories, but the only good one I've ever written is called Judd's Christmas. It's the only good story I've ever written.
It's not the only good one that you have, but it is the best.
Let's. I want to check and see if we got any questions about everything going on first.
Okay. Well, do you want to read and jot down any questions while I do this, and people can send in questions while I do this?
No, there's no new questions.
Okay. So
hold on.
Emilio did say audio drama, but That was
Well, that's
yeah.
I want to do like a podcast, like an audio drama. The problem is I don't know how to do like the sounds and stuff. What are you doing?
Julie did say, "Don't forget the creaking door."
I got some creepy background music going.
Am I still on camera?
Yeah.
Oh, it just unnerved me. So our working title is Stories from Dimension 134B. It's kind of clunky. I don't know. We've toyed with Diary of a Ghost Hunter stuff, but I don't know. I kind of like Stories from Dimension 134B.
You could just borrow it to Mad
World.
I like I like the one she came up with. I think it's what we'll go with. But my initial offering was Paranerdal Activity.
I like hers better.
I do like hers better.
Okay, so I'm going to do this to the best of my ability because my stomach has been acting up and my throat burns. So, Stories from Dimension 134B, Part 1, Kyle Cemetery. The craziest thing happened to me this weekend. I'm not sure where to start, but I've learned very recently that where you start isn't always important. That being said, I'll start with our first night at Kyle Cemetery. My name is Sarah, and for the past year, I've spent most of my weekends doing paranormal investigations. We started out going to different cemeteries and putting episodes up on YouTube. After a while, people began to call us to check out their haunted houses. So far, we haven't found anything really convincing. A year of ghost hunting and no ghosts in sight, which is a little disappointing, but not surprising because ghosts aren't real. A few weeks ago, we started a new case. We didn't have any residential cases that weekend, so we decided to scout a local cemetery to consider making a video about debunking the usual haunted cemetery claims. For ease of explanation, think of the cemetery as a square. On three sides, it's surrounded by trees, the west, north, and east sides. There's a small gravel parking lot in front. The gated entryway of the cemetery is connected to the parking lot. That side doesn't have any trees until you get past the clearing for the parking. The right and left of the cemetery have woods and brush right outside the fence line. The back of the cemetery has a break in the fence and a small path to the very back left corner. The rest of the fence also has trees running around the outside of it. They're really too thick to see through. The path starts with that break in the cemetery fence, like where a gate may have once been, but now is gone. A lot of the trees in that area have broken because a tornado hit last year and the one before. The first night we went out, we had no equipment, just a few flashlights. The path in the back corner caught my eye, and I just had to walk down it. It looked straight out of Pet Cemetery, and I needed to know what was at the end. The trees were spaced just enough to give me a clear walking path. As I walked, I shined the flashlight around, looking at the graceful arch the leaves made above my head. I turned around about 70 yards in when I realized that I couldn't hear my friends or see their lights. I hurried back because being alone in the woods always makes me think about mountain lions. The next night we came back with all of our equipment to do a proper investigation. The core of our group consists of 3 people, me, my best friend Allie, and the token male Brad. He goes by Ashton on social media, but I'm going to continue to call him Brad. Sorry. His sister Katie and her husband Justin also came with us that night. The plan was to shoot a video on just the cemetery, saving the path and whatever potentially lay beyond for another night. Our group has tons of equipment, so it's usually pretty late by the time we are set up and ready to go. This night was no exception. My specialty in the group is EVPs. Basically, I ask questions and wait to record ghostly answers. I look absolutely ridiculous doing this. Allie takes pictures while everything is going on. Katie was using an infrared camera that shows images in the thermal spectrum. Brad usually ends up recording this whole mess with a handheld recorder that can see in the dark. Justin was watching our 4 static cams we set up around the cemetery to monitor in back of Brad's hatchback. We decided to go counterclockwise from the front gate to the parking lot. Settling in on our first spot for the night, we immediately realized how secluded we were. The cemetery is way off the beaten path, so the only noises were us and nature. I sat on a gravestone to begin my questions as the rest of the group went on their normal tasks. Is there anything out here that would like to communicate with us? I asked to the empty air. Can you say the name of someone buried here? I pressed on with about half a dozen more questions. As usual, I felt ridiculous as the group watched me talk to the air and ask questions. For EVPs, we generally wait until we have time to actually play them back and listen for whatever disembodied voices we can find. While I was going through a few of our usual questions, we heard a chorus of coyotes start howling eerily close to us. When they finally quieted down, we started to hear a smaller noise even closer, a puppy crying. Allie and I immediately jumped to attention. I don't care if it's a baby coyote or a baby dog. It sounds scared, I said aloud. I needed to save it, right then. With Allie and I leading the group, we cut across the cemetery towards the back fence. When we reached the middle, I turned around and realized the rest of the group was a good 40 feet behind me. I'm confused. They were right behind me a minute ago, I thought to myself. Stopping, I waited for them to catch up. Brad and Katie went towards one of the graves near the back fence. The puppy had gone silent for now. As Brad approached the fence, Katie lagged behind, filming with the thermal cam. Within seconds, he stopped moving forward and was now running backwards towards Katie, totally wigged out. Something just growled at me, he yelled. I don't see anything on the thermal cam, Katie replied. As all this was going on, the puppy began its mournful cries, and Allie and I took off instinctively searching for the sound. That growl may have been the mom coyote, Brad cautioned. Screw logic, though, baby coyote. I walked away from the group to find myself close to the break in the back fence, at the beginning of the path from the night before. I turned again to find the group an unnerving distance behind me. I'd only gone what I thought was a few feet, but several yards stretched between me and everyone else. The coyotes were howling all around us, and the puppy quieted again. I began to feel pretty anxious. Something felt very wrong. It felt like we were being herded in a certain direction. Allie was feeling the same conflict when she finally reached me. We wanted to save this puppy, but something was wrong. It's like it was a noise tailor-made to steal the logic from the minds of our particular friend group, an animal in danger. Eventually, we grouped up near a grave by the back, breaking the gate. As we stared out the gate, something in the air shifted. Then, without warning, something walked past the gate. I saw a shadow. It was tall, really tall. At first, I assumed it was a person, either messing with us or trying to figure out who the hell was screwing around in the cemetery after midnight. That idea went up in smoke as soon as I focused on the legs. They were wrong. It's as if they had an extra joint, or they were made for an animal that spends most of its time walking on all fours. But his posture was straight. It was unlike the posture of a bear or any other animal capable of walking like that for any distance. Trying to process what I was seeing, I realized that this thing, whatever it was, stood about 7 feet tall. It passed from the woods to the right of the gate into the woods to the left, across the path I had been looking down. Then it was gone. It didn't all settle in at once, and I was having trouble processing what I had just seen. For a few seconds, I thought I was the only one who saw anything. After some moments passed, we were all talking at once and rapidly moving to clear out our equipment. Allie and Brad were both talking about the thing they had seen walk across the path. While it was awesome to know I wasn't the only one who saw it, the experience was pretty scary. Ghosts are fine, but whatever this is appeared capable of causing us pain, so we were done. While we were rushing equipment and cords to the car, we found Justin had gotten so scared at some point that he had moved the monitor into the back seat of the car and was now sitting entirely in the closed trunk with it. Brad, who is normally pretty anal retentive about how the equipment should be packed up, threw all the static cams, tripods, and all into a big tangled pile in the back of his hatchback.
Fuck it.
Pretty much. I mean,
I don't remember what we talked about in the rush to evacuate, but soon Katie and Justin were on their way home in their car. Allie, Brad, and I were on our way back to my house and his. Later at my house, we went over some of the evidence and were gutted to find that we had captured nothing solid. Some of the howling noises, but no video of the creature or anything else that happened. We're going to go back as soon as we can. We're going to head out during the day so we can take pictures and maybe debunk some of the experiences we had. Hopefully soon I'll know more about what the hell happened out there.
And this is where it's going to go into your second blog post.
Yes, because that's how I'm going to do it. No Sleep has a word limit.
Right. But
So,
we're also going to post it as a blog on our website,
Yeah.
too. Like, it's going to have its own section.
Part 2. Hey, this is Sarah again. If you haven't been following along so far, I'm a paranormal investigator with a group. Hey, monitor and tell if anyone tells me to shut up.
Nobody has.
nobody
any?
has yet. Patrick did say you do have the perfect reading voice. Should do book reads or voiceovers.
I would love to. I'm a paranormal investigator with a group called NTParanormal Investigations that operates out of the North Texas area. If you didn't read my first entry, you should probably go back now and catch up before reading this one. It's going to be hard enough to understand without knowing how we got to this point. Don't worry, I'll wait. And because it's a blog post, that's...
Right.
After our investigation turned up nothing solid, we did eventually go back, but it wasn't until a few days later. Having 2 kids and a husband who works long hours doesn't always lend itself well to our schedule. Babysitters are expensive, so I usually have to sweet-talk a family member into watching them, or wait until my husband Steven has a day off if I want to do anything during daytime hours, which is just one of the many reasons we investigate at night. Having to wait a day before the kids' grandmother would come watch them left me with a lot of downtime to think about what had happened. I really wanted to go out there and thought briefly about just packing the kids up in the car. But I decided that if there was something out there, that it wouldn't be the safest idea. Instead, I got on the internet and decided not only to post up my first journal entry, but to do some research about the cemetery and the events of the night before. Normally, research would be Brad's gig, but I had to do something to pass the hours. After a day of digging, I was surprised to find that the town, Rio Vista, where Kyle is located, had a pretty strange history with some paranormal reports. I found at least a dozen stories about a ghost hitchhiker that people would pick up right off the main highway that connects to the hidden dirt road that takes you to the cemetery. I also managed to find out that there was a locally famous serial killer who liked to dump bodies in the area. But once I really started digging into the history of the town, things got really freaky. In my research, I found an old Texas history book online that specifically chronicled the events surrounding the early days of the area. In the 1800s, when the town was first being settled by white people, there was a tribe of Anadarko natives that called the area their home. At first, they resisted the settlers coming in, as they should have.
What I really like about this part of the story is, like, we haven't got to the part where it's fiction yet.
No, this is all true.
Yeah, no, all of
Everything up to
like-
this point is actually non-fiction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like finding Justin in the back of the car.
Yeah, like, and he's not a small dude.
No, he's a giant.
So he's back there with like a giant computer monitor and Brad's hatchback, like bent up like a fetus because he's so terrified. And he like lives out in the country, so
And he's like 7 feet tall.
yeah, so the fact that he was frightened, it was like, okay, it's time to get out.
But yeah, it's, we haven't even got out
well,
of the
and this
the
stuff about the
non-fiction part yet.
Anadarko, if you've listened to us before, this is all true. At first, they had resisted the settlers coming in, but had grown desperate for help defending themselves from the nearby Comanche that constantly raided the area. Eventually, they struck an agreement with the settlers that they would let them come into the area if they helped them fight the invading tribe. The fight that would ensue ended up being fought on a specific area of land by Ham Creek that the Anadarko claimed was sacred burial ground. The fight was pretty brutal and described in dark detail. The Anadarko were so pissed about the whole thing that they left the Comanche bodies on the battlefield to rot and wouldn't allow them proper burial rites. The settlers were unnerved by the whole thing and eventually forced the poor Anadarko off off the land up to Oklahoma. And that's true. They made them walk to Oklahoma. Anyway.
Are you saying we went back on a promise?
Oh no, we wouldn't do that.
It's an interactive blog today.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Obviously upset about being betrayed, the Anadarko supposedly cursed the ground by summoning a skinwalker that told the settlers that there would be no peace in that area until they were asked to return to their home. The story was sad and included an old hand-drawn map that had been scanned. When I looked at it, the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Right over the spot that we had been investigating at Ham Creek was a marking, X, Comanche Battle of 1819, Anadarko Burial Grounds. We had been wandering around investigating legitimate Indian burial grounds. I felt sick to my stomach. Intrigued by the story, I started to do research on skinwalkers and fell even further down the rabbit hole. I couldn't find any references to the Anadarko or our specific area, but more than one website said that they were a Navajo legend that was commonly shared by nearby tribes. For the most part, the Navajo were pretty tight-lipped to outsiders about the creatures, but there was some stuff that was commonly known. In Navajo legend, a skinwalker is usually a witch doctor who practices dark magic. This changes them, much like a Wendigo is changed by consuming human flesh. They generally take the shape or persona of a coyote, but can mimic other animals. They will also mimic humans. They can look like and sound like any people they encounter as a means of disguise. The only way a person can tell the difference is that they can only repeat things they've heard. They will also sound mechanical and their movements will be off. They're said to often mimic baby animals or a human in distress to lure you into their territory. If you think your friend is perhaps a skinwalker, ask questions that only they would know the answer to.
Well, I guess since you stopped, I was trying to figure out if I farted or if there was a door creaking in the day.
You have to ask someone else if you farted?
Well, okay, I was trying to be as stealthy as possible so you could still read. And stealth is not my forte.
But you are silent but deadly.
I am.
I felt ill thinking about everything that happened the night before.
I bet.
I'm just going to interrupt you. I don't really subscribe to any of this BS, but so much of what I was reading lined up perfectly. I had felt trapped, herded, and distracted by small animal noises that we damn well knew were not there. The thing I saw in the back was unnatural and strange. The words mechanical movement kept ringing in my ears as I thought of the legs that were so wrong. There was no way that this could be a thing. But Brad had brought up a solid point on cases before when we got bugged out. This is what we're here to find.
It's true.
Creeped out, I put up my laptop and tried to put the thought out of my mind. But the harder I tried, the more I just hoped that going back there during the day would give us some logical answers, just like they had in past investigations. If what I saw was real, I wasn't sure how I would deal with it. The next day, Mimi came to pick the kids up. About an hour later, Allie and Brad both came by the house to pick me up. As I packed provisions for our daytime adventure, I told them about what I had found. Both of them looked at me like I was crazy when I strapped my hunting knife and a canister of bear mace to my belt. I explained that even if there weren't monsters in the woods, there could very well be wildlife out there who thought we might make a tasty snack. I'm an avid hiker and a bit of a survivalist. I can attest to seeing more than one mountain lion out in Texas Hill Country. On that note, Allie grabbed one of the secondary knives off my nearby bookshelf and handed it to me. We should take extra, just in case, she said. Brad chuckled under his breath, but didn't protest. The drive seemed to take longer than normal. I think the anxiety was high and it just drew everything out. When we pulled up to the front gate, it was about 2 p.m. and the sun was high in the sky. Upon walking in, we immediately realized something was off about the place. It only seemed about half the size from the previous nights we had been there. What had been a huge, expansive cemetery now seemed to be only a small private lot-sized graveyard. All the major landmarks were there, but everything just seemed compressed. We walked around the lot to the areas where things had happened, but found nothing out of place. No tracks, no broken tree limbs, or anything out of the normal. But once we got to the back fence line where we had heard the coyotes, my jaw went slack. Almost sprinting, I ran to the back gate where I saw the thing, and stepped through, closely followed by Allie and Brad. "Where's the forest?" I exclaimed, out of breath. "What are you talking about?" said Allie. "What forest?" We were now all three standing in the lot behind the cemetery and looking out over the terrain. What had very clearly been a heavily wooded area with a long straight trail was now an open area sparsely populated with just a few trees and bushes. One of the trees laid broken across the path, the path where I had previously walked. The other night when we were here, I walked out that gate, I pointed, and down a long, narrow path lined by forests on either side. It was here. It was thick woods with tall trees. I couldn't see through it. Remember, you guys said it was like Pet Cemetery, right? I pleaded. My mind was reeling. "I remember that. I didn't go in, but yeah, I saw a long path through the gate," Brad affirmed. I only felt slightly better. I wanted to know what was going on. This is not the same. If I had walked this path the way I did before, I would have tripped and killed myself. We spent the next few hours searching all around the area for animal tracks, dens, and signs that they had been there, and we found nothing. The trees were so thin that even if there had been an animal, it would have shown up on the thermal camera. We even tested this to make sure. Exhausting everything we knew to check, we finally decided that we would just hike the back trails that led deeper into the creek that stretched off the back lot. Maybe we would find some answers there. After a good 100 yards, the main trail dipped way down into an almost vertical rocky slope that ended in a dry creek bed. Enamored by the lure of such an awesome-looking trail, we climbed down and continued our hike. We kept pushing on for the next few hours. Some parts of the creek were easy to follow, while other parts were winding, rocky, and seemingly enclosed by jagged cliffs on either side, like miniature canyons. The further we hiked out, the more it seemed like we were traveling back in time. It wasn't long before we were far from the cemetery and even more isolated. Eventually, we found that the creek cleared into an area of woods that we estimated had to be about a mile off the main property, even though we couldn't tell where exactly. None of us had signal on our phones to check the GPS location to make sure. After a short break, we decided we should head back. We could see that the sun was making its descent to the horizon, and we didn't want to get stuck in this unfamiliar area without any light. Climbing back onto the rocky, winding trail, we made our march back to the cemetery. After about 10 minutes, Allie told me she needed a break. At first, I was a bit frustrated because we had just taken one, until I looked at her and she gave me the signal that she needed to pee. Heading slightly off trail and behind a bush, she disappeared to do her business. A few seconds later, we heard a snapping sound and then a scream. Brad took off like a shot to see what was going on. I followed behind him only a few steps and placed my hand over my knife. The only words ringing in my mind was skinwalker. And this is where it's fiction, so from here on out.
I remember all this happening. Every bit of it.
When we got behind the
I do pee often.
Yeah, you
so.
do. When we got behind the bush, Allie was flat on her ass with her pants around her knees. She looked like she was in pain, clenching one of her ankles. I rolled my damn ankle, she said, fighting back tears. Having been an EMT for so many years, I lived for crises such as these. Kneeling down, I checked her ankle. It was already starting to swell and bruise. I applied some gentle pressure, and she flinched from the pain. Okay, Family Guy.
I'm gonna do sound effects for the environment here on out.
Shit, it might be broken. If you can't walk, we might be screwed, I said. I don't have any service. I can't even call for help right now, Brad chimed in. What should we do? I can walk, Allie said in a stubborn tone. Just help me get my damn pants back on. My ass is covered in dirt. After a few minutes of struggling, we got her back up and covered. We even managed to help her down the trail a good 20 feet before she changed her mind. Never mind, I can't do this. It's too far. I checked her ankle again and it was easily double the size it should have been. Look, you guys take the extra knife and the bear mace and chill here. I'm going to hike back up to the trail, out of the canyon, where I can get a signal. I'll call for some help. If nothing else, they can bring an ATV out here and get Allie. I said this with an authoritative tone because if I didn't, I knew I'd lose control of the situation and panic would ensue.
Are you sure? I can go.
Brad said. Yeah, I'm sure. If I get lost or something, you have the best chance of carrying Allie out of here. I handed him the small belt pouch of equipment. Both of us nodded in agreement. I knew there were no bears in the area, but definitely mountain lions, so I figured better safe than sorry. I marked the spot with a small pile of branches and an extra shirt I always kept in my bag. Then I quickly got back on the trail and headed in the direction of the cemetery, dreading the climb back up out of the creek. My head was spinning. I'm a big girl, but I do hike often and can move fairly fast when I need to, so I booked a Kyle at double time. The last thing I wanted was the two of them stuck on that side of the gate after sunset. I figured the sun would go down around 7:30, so I had about an hour and a half to get there. We had taken tons of breaks on the way out, so it really shouldn't have been a problem. I knew deep down I was fooling myself, but I pressed on. It's not like we had many other options. I followed all the familiar landmarks until I realized I'd passed the same tree for the second time. I was going the right way. I knew I was. There was only one trail. We hadn't taken any side trips at all. Moving faster, I got my phone out to check for signal. As the light gradually dimmed, I passed the same tree for a third time. I felt a sense of despair overcome me. None of my survival books, hiking, or EMT experience had prepared me for what was going on. I didn't know what to do. Sure, I could keep walking this same trail over and over in whatever circle of hell this was, or I could turn around and hope that whatever was going on would let me find my friends. When the sun finally hit the horizon, the hair on my neck stood up, and I did an about face. The feeling of being watched suddenly overwhelmed me. I was now moving at a pace just short of a jog. A rustling started in the woods to my left, and I kicked myself for leaving my flashlight in my bag. With my hand on my knife sheath, I kept moving. In the darkness, not far from my position, I could barely see a shadow to my left in the trees keeping pace with me. If it was an animal, I thought my best bet was to be loud and intimidating. If it was a human, I thought maybe I was saved. The only thing that kept me from yelling out was the thought of the 7-foot monster with the backwards legs. Nervously, I kept going, letting my footsteps stomp louder in hopes it was just a curious creature with no real interest in confrontation. The wind kicked up and blew a smell I could only describe as death my way. I spent a lot of time working in the hospital ER, and I know that smell all too well. The coyotes started up with their howls, and I ran. I tried to keep from crying, but soon after, being the couch potato I am sometimes, my breath tore from my lungs painfully and my sides ached. As I slowed, I heard a thrashing in the woods. Now to my right, there was more than one creature keeping pace with me, keeping obscured in the inky blackness of the sunless forest. I couldn't see anything save the few feet directly around me. Okay, not funny, I yelled into the darkness. I'm not sure what I hoped to accomplish. Maybe I should say I had a knife, I thought to myself. That would surely terrify the skinwalkers that were stalking me. Hearing a limb snap just a few yards to my right, I took off again. I was more than desperate to see the familiar pile of limbs with my t-shirt pinned on top. The safe harbor of my friends sounded like the best thing ever at the moment. Even if we were all screwed, at least I wouldn't be alone. I then had the sobering realization that I was that asshole from every horror movie ever. Sure, I'll go alone into the woods. Sure, let's split up. It'll be a blast, I said to myself in an extremely sarcastic, out-of-breath tone. As As my breathing again became impossibly painful, I pushed on into the black. I ran face first into what felt like a brick wall, causing me to stumble backwards and land flat on my back. Not knowing what to do, I just shut my eyes and waited for whatever it was to eat me. Hello, it's me again, Sarah. So good news, I didn't die. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should probably go back, yada, yada, yada. Either way, you probably want to know what happened after I ran into something in the dark. I lay there for several seconds with my eyes shut tight, just waiting to die. However, when death didn't come, I finally decided to look, opening one eye at a time, and found myself staring up at Brad.
Ta-da!
Oh, holy shit, I sighed, exceedingly glad to see him. Are you okay? What the hell are you doing? Brad put his hand out to help me up. I came out of the forest, and you just ran right at me. He looked concerned as he urged me to my feet. Immediately, I jumped up and hugged him, something I'm normally pretty adverse to, but I'd never been that happy to see anyone before. I was trying to find help, but I couldn't find my way, and then something in the woods was following me. I exclaimed as Brad looked at me as if I lost my mind. Hearing more movement, I scanned the edges of the forest looking for the source. What the hell are you talking about? I left you and Allie in the cemetery to try and bait the skinwalkers into coming out. You aren't supposed to be back here yet. His look of confusion changed to one of disapproval, as if I had done something monumentally stupid. Is this a joke? Allie, come out. This isn't funny, I yelled, my voice echoing into the woods. I knew tears were leaking from my eyes. I was thankful that this was all a joke, but I was not yet ready to laugh along. Brad looked me up and down for several seconds. I could tell something was wrong. I too started to notice something strange. When I left Brad and Allie back in the woods, he had been clean-shaven. Now he was sporting a bit of the beard. Just how long have I been out here? I wondered to myself, dazed. What happened on our last ghost hunt? He asked. What? The question was confusing and a bit out of the blue. It's our Skinwalker test question. I want to make sure you're you. Where were we last weekend? What happened? He demanded, shining a flashlight directly into my eyes. I don't know. We went to Antioch. Nothing happened. Some rednecks lost their dog, I answered, putting my hand up to shield my face. I couldn't figure out what he was talking about. That's not right, Brad said, starting to step back from me slowly, his eyes darting all around. You don't seem like one, but something is definitely wrong with you. At this point, I was completely lost. I became even more confused when Brad started whistling the signature notes from the X-Files frantically over and over like a total weirdo. What the hell are you doing? I asked. Damn it, Trevor, where are you? He shouted. Who the hell is Trevor? I asked. I started frantically assessing myself for concussion symptoms, feeling my head for bumps. Maybe Brad would let me use his flashlight to check my pupil response. Then I smelled ozone. It was like distilled thunderstorm, a dash of fear, a gallon of excitement. A small blue light appeared over the path, and weirdo Brad sighed with relief. The light grew to roughly the size of a football, and about the same shape, too, then continued to enlarge. What was probably 2 or 3 seconds in total, my mind slowed to a crawl in that way adrenaline does. Nope, screw this. I turned to run, my legs flailing beneath me, but I didn't cover any ground. Something had me. The monster had me. Whatever horror that was coming out of that portal. Something flicked me in the head. Hey, that's a bit extreme. I know we didn't end the last hunt on the best terms, but no need to run, said a smoothly condescending voice. It thumped me again lightly. I turned to face whatever horror had crawled out of the hole and sat down hard, confusion filling me so full that I couldn't logic my way out of this one. It was just a guy, a rather attractive man wearing an Eagles t-shirt and faded jeans. He looked normal, almost too normal. Dark hair, light eyes, very Midwestern. He also looked young, maybe early 20s. But I could tell that he was far more than he seemed, probably because he just fell out of a magical portal. Trevor, she's not, Brad started. Oh, I see, Trevor responded, the condescension basically dripping off every syllable. She obviously isn't the right Sarah. What were you thinking? Trevor admonished. I took the time to attempt to go catatonic from confusion. Some shock would be perfect right now, because this absolutely couldn't be happening. Look at that, you broke her, Trevor said and winked at me. He freaking winked at me. I jumped to my feet, anger overcoming my urge to just try and ignore this whole mess. Okay, Lord Condescension. Most people would be pretty flustered if this happened to them. I was angry. He'd hit me right in the pride, and from the look on his face, that's what he intended to do. So explain all of this and I can be on my way. My friend is alone in the woods with possibly a broken ankle. There are skinwalkers wandering around, and I just want to sort it out before they eat her. Skinwalkers where? Trevor's eyes surveyed the forest around us, eyes wide with mock surprise. Oh, it's okay. I was supposed to be luring them to the back gate, but they were probably hunting her friends, Weirdo Brad said without an ounce of fear.
This version of me is so much braver than me.
Then let's go, I practically screamed. Explain quickly so we can fix this.
Cliffhanger. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
The live delivery is obviously, you know, it's rough.
You could tell it's fiction because we would never have a friend named Trevor. No offense
I
to
have an
Trevor,
uncle
it's
named
everywhere.
Trevor.
Well, I mean, but is he your friend?
I don't know. I read that because I would like to gauge if people are actually interested in this.
Yes, judge it on the merit of the story that you heard so far, not the
my
production.
reading.
Well, it's not your reading, but just the production. Obviously, we're going to produce it.
Yeah.
And
And
so
the
it's going to be
idea-
very smooth. It's going to have some subtle sound effects and a good backing track and characters.
Yeah, where I was gonna have everyone read their own parts and
Yeah, we're gonna do it more like less like a podcast, but like the
Like a radio show.
Yeah, I want to do it like the
Yeah.
old radio shows,
Yeah.
which I think is very cool to me. I used to do that when I was a kid. I had like my little Magnavox, and I had like the cassettes of the old radio shows, and I would.
I had the shadow knows.
Well, I had the boombox that had the two, so that you could like dub tapes, and I would do like interviews, and then I would pull stuff from.
So you're Cecil from Welcome to Night Vale.
Yes.
By the way, I'm pitching a podcast. On our podcast, listen to Welcome to Night Vale.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you know.
Welcome to Night Vale.
Because without creepypastas and podcasts like that, I would never have any story ideas.
Yeah.
They help my brain chemicals work.
Oh, so I don't know if I want to mention it because I don't want to overshadow, but our audiobook is almost ready. She actually sent me all the files, and it's
Oh, and she was doing your fiction book too, and it sounds really good.
it's another lady is doing it. Kelly McCormick is doing the After Dark Paranormal read, and it's finished. There's just some quality control things with ACX.
Didn't you play it for me when I was in the hospital that one time? We listened
Yes.
To it? Okay.
Yeah, that was the first 15
Okay.
minutes of it, and I've got the promo reel ready for it too. So that should be available before the end of the month. She's got to fix some files, like there's nothing wrong with the audio, but the way the files line up or whatever for Audible, she's got to fix that, and that'll be ready. The recording has started on Under the Surface, and that's what I was playing for you yesterday.
Yeah.
She's actually already finished the first two stories, which would be Selling a Lie and Natural Selection, and it sounds really good.
Yeah,
like
it's
it
good.
makes my very mediocre writing sound actually passable.
I am gonna. So these stories, I've got 3 of them written. When I get about 5 written, I'm gonna start releasing them on Reddit so people don't get bored like waiting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna release them on Amazon, and you have to set a price to put it on Amazon.
Yeah, it's 99 cents, but you can also put it on Kindle Direct,
Okay.
which it'll be free on Kindle Direct.
I just don't want anyone paying me for something they can get for free, unless you would like to donate money to, you know.
Well, it'll be a pay version that people can get if they want to contribute money to it, but they'll also be able to get it just absolutely free on
Yeah.
our website, because I'm going to set up a special page for it where it appears in its blog format, and we can also do illustrations and little videos and interactive stuff in there
And
too.
any money that goes towards this stuff I'm writing is going to go towards that EEG machine.
Right, it's gonna go towards,
yeah.
and all the After Dark sales go
Yeah,
towards
the
our
EEG.
goes
Just buying
it goes
equipment,
towards
travel.
it goes towards
Yeah.
research, and all we were talking about it at the convention last weekend. Is we're actually applying for a grant for scientific
Really?
research. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I like how Allie said she liked your shirt.
it probably won't get approved because we don't do anything useful. But we are officially applying for
Hey,
a
I mean,
science
you never
research
know.
grant.
You never know. I mean,
I think it's medically relevant. Like,
But we're not medical doctors. Now, some of the conditions of the grant might be that we have to, pay a physician to supervise and help, different things like that. There might be conditions of it. I have to look into it.
Or I mean, especially if we're doing anything like
maybe my mom's doctor.
Right,
friend
I was
would
going
do
to say,
it.
Sarah brought up a good point this weekend that her mom can read an EEG.
Yeah, and she's got that doctor friend that she talks
That
to
would
all
be
the time. He
Right.
might be interested in this. I actually wonder, because he does grants and stuff.
Well, maybe
I
we
should
need to
have
sit
her
down
message him.
and have like an investors meeting.
Okay.
You know, and maybe say, hey, you know,
The
we're
problem
trying
is
to
for these investigators, you ain't never getting. They're not investing in getting money back.
yeah, because we don't get paid, so they ain't getting shit back.
Well, they're paying for advertising. Because you know, we could interview them on our podcast.
Yeah.
We could give mentions, accolades, things like that.
'Cause all the-
so they're basically paying for like publicity. They get to attach their name to it.
Yeah, because all the advertising we've done so far is for free, just stuff we like.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. All the things that we mention as sponsors or whatever, we don't get money for any of it. These are people that we
aren't big deal enough to get sponsors.
I was about to say, like,
Yeah, they're not actually sponsors. They're people that we're actually
We're fans
we could set up a Patreon.
I think we should set up a
I think we should.
I was actually going to link the Patreon to the second podcast, the one I'm going to do with this. Mm-hmm. And then that can dump into the
Right.
EEG and costs for
I
conventions.
don't know. I always wanted to keep a fine line
Yeah,
between accepting like donations and in things
Well,
like
that's why
that.
I was
going to
link it to this
Right.
podcast because I wouldn't want anyone to pay for the podcast. So what they could do is if they felt like donating, they could donate to the Patreon and they could know it was going to our research.
Well, and that's why I've always offered our merchandise page in our books and stuff like that. Way when they're paying for something, they're getting something, you know, and that money just goes into our fund.
Well,
I don't like people just giving us money.
I was about to say,
we could
like,
set up rewards.
yeah, like
for donations.
Like most podcasts, whenever they set up a Patreon, they do like extra content. Or we could set up like, hey, this is what we're doing with your donation, and then like we could set
Okay.
up like extra content of.
Well,
us-
since we're just talking about it
Hold on.
live,
Okay, so anyone,
sorry.
so anyone listening, if you have any ideas on a reward system for donating to us, like we could send or like send a signed copy of our book or special extra videos, or if you pay enough money, you go on a ghost hunt. You see what I'm saying? Something like
you're opening a very scary door there.
that. Okay. Well, then,
There's because that's how I used to do it on our GoFundMe, where if you donated a certain amount, you got like a T-shirt. If you donated a certain amount, you got to go on a ghost hunt. The problem is people that are outside of our area would want to donate, and they can,
okay.
you know, we can't afford like the airfare to bring them in
Right.
to
well,
come
then
do
it'd
a
have to
very
be-
mediocre ghost
It'd have
hunt.
to be something we could send them then. So
Right.
if y'all can think of something like, or I could send an extra audio.
Well, one of the
something,
things we
or-
do at our cons for our fundraiser is we raffle off a ghost hunting kit, which I personally build. It usually consists of a full spectrum camera, an IR light, an EMF detector, and a audio recorder and a flashlight.
Or we could do a thing too
And-
where
and
if
it
they
comes in a
donate, they can
case.
go on the podcast. Like,
Right? Yeah. Also,
Just any
there's
ideas.
all sorts of stuff, but we're looking for feedback.
yeah, I just wanted feedback on all.
And we're
this.
looking for feedback on what you want our next topic to be. And like the reading she just did, that's not going to be a regular thing of this podcast. It's going to have its own.
Yeah, we're launching a second podcast.
Channel. Now we might do that as like a holiday.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be really cool if you guys want to see us. We could do like scripts and do a
On
Halloween
Halloween, yeah.
episode.
I have done a lot of research on the NDEs. I've done some so far. I've interviewed my mom and talked to her about a lot of her experiences in the hospital because she had a near-death experience. So I'm thinking we can do that next week on NDEs?
Yeah, I think next week we're going to try to
Okay.
do the NDE episode.
And if you've ever had an NDE or know someone who has,
Yeah.
we're trying to find someone to interview.
Yeah, we would really like to have somebody on the show that's actually had a near-death experience that they could, maybe describe, walk us through, tell us their story. And then we wanted to talk about like the medical side of it and some of the spiritual side of it too.
I was gonna say, I mean, you could go into what actually happens to your brain when you die.
Yeah, that was going to be
Right.
part of
Yeah.
it, was the chemicals that are released versus the spiritual side. But yeah, it'll be an interesting podcast, and a bunch of people had voted for it. So.
Right, and then
Oh crap! Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that next week.
oh, because your eye. That's right. So I might do something with Kristen and Allie.
Okay.
That week.
Yeah, I have eye surgery Monday, so
So no NDEs next week, but maybe the week after.
Well, I brought up. Do you want to just do a Q&A?
We could do a Q&A.
I
Didn't
wanna
Zach
be
want to
in on
come in
that.
as a skeptic?
Yeah. Do you want to do a skeptic episode?
Okay,
you know
well-
what? I've seen a lot of interest in a debate.
All right. Do you want to?
I got to be in on a debate.
Well,
I just won't be able to read. I'll be able to sit on the podcast. I just won't be able to read anything, and I'm taking a bunch of notes.
Okay.
But if it's a debate, I want to be in on that.
Maybe it could be you and Zach versus me and Allie.
Okay.
Sounds good. You know, y'all could share a mic. We could share a mic.
Okay.
You could share a mic on that side. We could share a mic on this side.
Okay.
And
People can pose debate
and
questions.
Kristen can be neutral and come in and moderate.
Moderate. Okay.
So we're gonna have to work really hard this week to come up with questions. With
We're
you
gonna
guys,
add a thread. We're gonna add a thread where you can come up with your own questions.
Yeah, you guys need to add. It's gonna be an actual debate with like everybody's got a certain amount of time they can talk. To make an argument, and you have to take a side. So you got Zach's actually skeptical, you're skeptical, me and I'm sometimes skeptical, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate on it and be the non-skeptic, and you'll play non-skeptic on our side, and we'll make arguments for the other side.
Sounds good.
Even though we're
But it'll be like speed chess, only a debate,
right.
because we don't get to research.
Right, and then we'll have Kristen run it, and so I'm wondering if this is going to be less of a debate and more of a roast, but
I don't know, but yeah.
okay, I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
But let's all of us, and we'll get Kristen on the horn, and we'll come up with some questions, and then we especially want questions from all the viewers.
Yeah.
So start.
Start thinking of your questions.
Right. So
And we'll post the thread for you to
yeah,
give us your.
yeah, we'll start a thread, and everybody can post questions, and we won't answer the questions in the thread, so don't get frustrated if we don't respond right then and there.
Yeah, we'll answer them
Yeah,
next
we also
Thursday.
get a lag and stuff like that. So like even if you ask your questions on debate day, it'll take us a minute to get to it.
Right,
So.
but you'll be able to tune in live like you're doing now.
We
and
need to
and
make
as-
sure
as
before
long as
we
everything's working.
Before we commit to Thursday, we need to make sure Kristen and Zach can actually show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well let's.
Well, we're just talking future shows.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, if nobody's ready for anything Thursday,
you should do the waveform one.
I was about to say
yeah,
like we could do
I'll
like
do something on waveforms. I always got something in my pocket.
Oh, yeah.
Just in case.
or like we could do like a Friday night fight, like set it up like.
Mhm.
Doo-doo-doo.
And then also, towards the end of this month, Rose Domain is coming in to do live readings. And
She's gonna do magic.
yeah, she's going to do tarot. She's bringing in crystals. She's going to show us her candles. She's going to talk about Harvest Rose witchery. She's just going to answer all your weird pornographic questions that she gets all the time.
She's really cool as a human, so it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, she's
Right.
good people.
And then in the way we're going to work that is you'll basically be in the chat or whatever, and you'll say, hey, pick me. And then we're going to basically hit you up on the messenger, and you'll be able to like video chat with her on here live.
Okay.
And you'll be able to get your reading, and there's first one's for free.
And I think for first week of August, I'm gonna try and get my dad out here to do the photography one.
Yeah.
But
That'll
I
be
think
really
that was
cool.
just gonna be you and him on that one, or you, me, and him,
Okay.
because he wanted to. I think he wants to keep it small, but
Right.
because he's probably gonna. Show
And
stuff.
then sometime around Allie's birthday, we're going to do one about serial killers for sure.
Oh yeah,
And conspiracies, because I like them.
that's
I
two
just-
separate episodes, you dork.
I could figure out how to make it into one. Okay, fine. 2 separate episodes. But yeah, I want to do a serial killer episode for my birthday.
Okay, so we got a lot of good plans. Send it. We're starting a thread, as soon as this archives, and start sending us all your questions for the upcoming debate. And we got a lot of good shows planned. Start getting ready for that. Be sure to bookmark us. We also got the Granbury Paranormal Expo coming up at end of September. Later in October, we got the AW Paranormal Porch again. And we have some investigations coming up that we'll be live streaming. So we got a lot of good stuff in store, even if we don't know what order it's going to be in.
Ooh.
So
Also, we're on Stitcher now.
yes. So this podcast that we're doing now has expanded a little bit. We're actually syndicated now. So it goes out live on Facebook first. But almost as soon as this archives, within 24 hours, it's on iTunes, it's on Podbean, it's on Stitcher, and in 2 weeks, it'll also be available on iHeartRadio. So
I listen to my podcast through Google Play, so I wonder if we shouldn't do that one too.
Ooh.
we're on Google Play.
Oh, okay.
It's you can get all the iTunes stuff through Google Play.
Okay.
We're on there. We just don't have a high rating on Google Play. We just need to push it a little bit more.
Cool deal.
But
We're not that entertaining. So.
the podcast is out, we're getting some traction, so I'm pretty happy with it. I want to get some more video content out of the way. Of course,
Yeah.
we got a lot of shows planned. There's a lot of irons in the fire right now,
Yeah.
so that's where we're at. But we appreciate everybody tuning in. Like I said, help us out because we got a lot of cool stuff coming up on future episodes. And be safe this weekend. If you've still got fireworks in your house, don't burn your house down trying to use up the last of your fireworks.
Once you light the black cat, throw it.
If you're going to go ghost hunting, don't go trespassing. Don't be drunk. Don't let the cops, put you in the tank because you were trying to catch spooks.
And if you do, don't blame us.
All right. So everybody be safe and,
Have a good weekend.
have a good weekend and stay open-minded.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did and you would like to know more about NTParanormal and our research, please visit us at www.ntparanormal.com or our Facebook page at facebook.com/NTParanormal. You can also check out our book, After Dark Paranormal Investigations, True Cases of the NTParanormal Team on Amazon.com, or find our articles in Paranormal Hauntings Magazine. Before we go, we would also like to thank our supporters at Paranormal Hauntings Magazine, Paranormal Investigations Equipment, PIE, Ghost House Paranormal, the Granbury Paranormal Expo, and the Tyler Paranormal Conference. Until next time, everyone stay safe out there and stay open-minded.